I'm Steve Gilman, and this is Brand Story, where we help you build stronger, more sustainable brands by sharing insightful conversations with brand leaders, marketers, and professional storytellers. My guest today is Lauren Smith.
I think constantly talking about growth, seeing where we can go, understanding that we can do hard things and seeing what we're capable of doing before we do it helps bond us together and keep us going.
Lauren is the executive creative director of 72 and Sunny, one of the top ad agencies in the country. And on her journey to 72 and Sunny, she's worked at some of the biggest names in advertising, TBWA and RG&A, just to name a few. And at 72 and Sunny, Lauren has helped shape the creative direction for some major brands like United Airlines, and she's worked with brands like the NFL, E-Trade, Zoom, Audible, and so many more. And you've been there for several years now, Lauren, and moved to the top of the creative team. So welcome to Brandstory. I'm so glad I get to talk to you today.
Hi, it's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, it's really cool to get to talk to you. I'm such a fan of 72 and Sunny and your work. It is my favorite agency name out there, by the way.
I can actually tell you a little bit about the name, which I think it's fun to just remind us. I think we get a lot of jokes that it's about the weather since our biggest office is in LA and it was founded in LA. And my husband likes to take pictures of when it's 72 and sunny outside and just text them to me.
I love that.
Unlike the mythology of that, it's actually a statement of optimism, which if you talk to our founders, Glenn Cole will say that humans by nature are inherently optimistic. Like every day we wake up believing that something good will happen. It's sort of a foundation of us being alive. And I think as we look at some of our disparate clients that we have, really this like undercurrent of optimism, not blind optimism, but like faith in humanity. We aren't jaded creatives who work in an advertising industry who like whine and moan and do comedy based on negativity. Everything we do, whether it's like the NFL being about the joy of football to United Airlines, good leads the way. The work that we've done for Adobe with Creativity for All, it really does have this undercurrent of optimism behind it.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And it's one of the reasons I'm such a big fan of 72 and Sunny. And it's one of those names. As soon as you hear that brand name, you're going to smile.
Yeah.
Unless you're just the most cynical person ever. I think you're going to instantly smile because it just has, it's a perfect brand name and it's great and it fits the work. Good for you guys for living your brand so perfectly because all of the work that you guys make has that feeling that runs through it. You guys would not be good at a whole bunch of like fear sell creative. It's not really in your wheelhouse, I suspect. So let's kick off a little bit by talking about, one campaign that I know you were instrumental in is the United Airlines rebrand, really, or, sort of a brand revitalization brand campaign. That was a really significant brand transformation for them at that moment. And I know it was about, like airlines have a very difficult time with reputation and making, having people think hopeful and good things about an airline is a challenge. And United had been through a little bit of problems as they all go through. Can you tell me? I mean, I know that was your campaign. You put your heart and soul into it. Can you tell me a little bit about this? Because this is a big one.
Yeah, I mean, so I came back from my second maternity leave, and Matt Murphy, our CCO, called me and he said, "You're going to work on the United Airlines pitch." And I got a little nervous. Airlines are it's a big deal. I almost sometimes like compare them to being like a political organization. There's always something that happens. They're dealing with billions of dollars. They're flying millions of people every day. There's always a crisis in the aviation industry and always something to respond to. And not only that, but it was 2021, no, 2020. So we were in the middle of a global pandemic. And as you know, the airline industry was like on its knees. And I told my husband, this is the second time he's come up on this call. I told my husband, I'm going to work on United Airlines and pitch. And he goes, "Oh, they're the best airline." And I go, "Wait, why? You don't even fly them." And he goes, "No, my husband works in green tech." And at the time he was in venture capital and he would invest in all of these sustainable um, uh, uh, tech ventures. And United had actually invested in two of his ventures, one that turned garbage into jet fuel, and another that worked on these giant direct air capture machines. And he goes, they're the only airline that's doing something besides carbon offsets, which I won't get too into the weeds about sustainability, but it was my first foray into realizing that what was happening at United Airlines was actually something really different than what had been happening at a lot of the other airlines. And when we launched a brand tagline like Good Leads the Way, it actually meant something. And that our job as marketers was just to get the sentiment, the marketing, the reputation of United to catch up with what they'd been doing on the inside. And a lot of times in advertising, we come up with these sort of, wow, what if, and wouldn't it be cool if? And what happened on United is actually they already had those wouldn't it be cool if. They saw that there was an issue with having enough really good pilots in the industry. They had a pilot shortage. And so they just created an aviation school, and that aviation school pulled from a really diverse set of talent and had some real diversity goals, which ended up also diversifying the flight deck. And so the work that we were doing was talking about their sustainability. We launched a campaign called Chief Trash Officer, where Oscar the Grouch, or Oscar the Grumpy Guy, as my kids call him, um, talked about how he was the chief trash officer, and they talked about how they were turning trash into sustainable aviation fuel. We did a film about their aviate school, but not only that, we did the really brave work of rebranding an airline in the middle of a pandemic, which seems like not the time to talk about an airline, but actually it was the perfect time. It was the perfect time to do something really brave and go out there with a message about being more than an airline, but being a force for good in the world. They were also the first airline to institute a mask mandate and to mandate that all their employees got vaccines, which actually ended up saving, I think, tens of thousands of lives. And so eh, it was a real privilege to get to understand their business and then to get to help consumers to understand what made them different as an airline and also what made them an airline that they should choose in the future.
Yeah, and I love hearing that because I'm a fan of United Airlines, and I remember your trash spots, and the I thought those were very clever. And that effort coming out of the pandemic sort of fits 72 and Sunny because everyone's hoping they can get back to flying, and it's a perfect time. You're gambling on things getting better and people being able to get back to travel. And I remember when we could all get back to travel. United felt like it was leading the way because it was out there, it was in the conversation, and it was talking about itself where other airlines were very quiet. So I thought that was a real strength. And it's always much stronger when you can shine a light on something that's true than come up with the cool idea and try to make it true. So good for you on doing the investigation and what you found out, because I didn't know a lot of that about United, but it kind of comes through even in the service you get. I feel like they're one of the airlines that the employees overall seem happier than others.
Yeah, I'm very happy to also talk about the employees because when we talk about some of our audience groups on United, one of their largest, I think they have, it fluctuates, but 80,000 employees. Um, and they are a group that we take very seriously. They need to believe in the work that we are doing, and they need to believe in the airline that they are a part of. And they are part of our group from being, research that we do to focus group testing to we have billboards that we do where we talk about employee stories, and we're about to launch a work stream where we talk about customer stories where employees have had a meaningful impact on the customers. We were I don't want to ding any of the other agencies that were part of the pitch, but we were the only agency that interviewed the employee groups, and we made a little zine about them. And I think I look at my job as not. I think sometimes in advertising we think of ourselves as being in the client services industry, and of course we are. We have clients, and United is one of our clients. But I really look at us as being partners, and we are doing these together. And it's part of my job to understand their business and to understand the people that work for them and with them. One thing that we do as a leadership crew on United is we go to their quarterly earnings, and there's a PR section to it, but there's also a closed door section to it where their executive team, including Scott Kirby, um, sit up and answer questions, and it's profoundly moving to me to sit there and, you'll have someone stand up and they'll go, "I'm a a flight attendant in Chicago. I've been working there for 25 years. I have X, Y, and Z questions." And then the executive team will sit up there and answer it to them. And we, as their partners, are always learning and taking inputs from what's happening over on their side. And I think you can start to see how that shows up into the work. We're really telling the truth versus making a mythology around who they are.
Or inventing something cute or something that gets temporary attention.
Yeah,
It's a long relationship. You all have been working with United for quite a while, like a lot of your clients.
yeah,
I think that's because you're showing up and I believe in this too. You're showing up as partners, but you're also showing up in a really human way. You're mining for stories. You're not just, sitting being quote unquote creatives, coming up with stuff out of thin air. And I think when you inform it that way, it's a lot stronger, isn't it?
it is. It is. Yeah.
You've done an incredible job of that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so that the entire unit, all the United work is just absolutely amazing. So congratulations on that. And then I know it's ongoing. So I always look forward to more of it coming out because I've always been a fan of your all's work. So it's great to meet you because I didn't know before I started researching for this episode that you had such an integral role.
Oh, thank you.
My compliments because it's beautiful, creative. It's so good.
Yeah, I think there's certain things that really stand out. Uh, and we're always trying to connect what United is doing to the impact that it has on someone on the other end. Like we did a film probably 2 years ago called "Everyone Cries," and it just has people crying on airplanes while they watch the Ivy. And it's just this sort of truth, like I don't know, is it something about the altitude that makes you cry? And there's this thing that everybody's like, yes, I cry on airplanes, and sometimes it makes me feel really good to cry. And that's the way that we talk about uh, screens at every seat. So instead of just telling people you've got a seat back screen when you get on United Airlines, we're telling someone that they've got feels at every seat, which ultimately is sort of like tying the product offering back to a real consumer truth about travel.
That's so great. Being a fan of United and frequently using that airline, it's so great to like I've seen all this work. And at times you don't think of it as the agency's work. You just think of it as United communicating with you. But it's all got a flavor and a feeling and it's all very, very good. Now I know the big campaign you did for them coming out of 2020. One of the reasons that it caught my attention is that it wasn't just the thing that a lot of agencies do where you do one big brand film and you have a couple other cuts and you're done and you're out of there. I mean, you guys really went multi-channel, multimedia for real. And you had so many different executions. Can you just unpack that a little bit for me?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's interesting. It's easy to go the traditional route and to make an anthem film. And I think that's actually what was in the pitch. It was an anthem film, and then you did a 30-second anthem cut down, and then whatever. Our client group over there is actually not made up of the traditional marketing crew. There are some people that understand marketing, but our creative client is comes from a social background. She worked on the Oprah Winfrey show. Um, Maggie it came from a PR background. Josh Earnest was uh, Obama's press secretary. And so they really think about the holistic experience of a traveler in the way that you think of a holistic experience of someone who's consuming media. And so it was really about showing up at multiple different touch points. We did a screening with the employees. We did a sticker for the employees that they could put on social. We did social first versions of the film. We activated in our airport hubs, and then we did one of my favorites was they wanted to talk about this feature called Agent on Demand, where you can call an agent from your phone instead of waiting in line at the customer service area. And so we did a YouTube pre roll where it was just a really, really long customer service line, and you could use the skip button to skip the ad.
So actually built for pre-roll.
Yes, yeah, built for pre-roll. So we really thought took the media into account when we did this. And I remember, when we approached the shoot, going, okay, we have X amount of dollars, but we've got to do all of these things. And when you work with an airline and they're having to get you airplanes to shoot, and you're working within a hangar, we ended up having a team of like we had the brand film, and then we had some product films, and then we had a photographer, and then we had another photographer, and then we had a social crew who were all capturing content all at the same time, and a bit of a beautiful mess. But I think it ended up being really impactful for the customer at the other end because they're not just engaging with United on, a TV screen when they sit at home or on their phone. Like they're engaging as they walk through the airport or drive through any of the hub cities or are, when they're on social media. And we really wanted to build a brand from all of the channels versus thinking about it traditionally.
Yeah, well, I love that approach. I mean, I think that's really what works, and I wish more of us did it out in the industry. But it was amazing. I remember a lot of this campaign because I experienced it by going through the hubs at that time, and I saw an awful lot of it. So we could probably talk about United all day long. But you work on a lot of other work too. Is there any other client? And then I want to talk to you a little bit about your role as executive creative director. But is there any other client work that just jumps top to mind that you're really proud of?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and maybe not to harken too much back to the pandemic, but we've worked with Adobe as one of our clients for the past, I think, 6 years. Speaking of maternity leaves, it was another client that I came on to after my first maternity leave, and we'd worked with them for a while. We did a couple campaigns, and then they came to us and they said, for the first time ever, we're seeing that brand love for Photoshop is declining. And it had been sort of a steward for creativity and a beacon for what that meant in people's lives. And I think as they were seeing younger people come in, they were like, we don't know what Photoshop means and what it can do for us. So we went many, many rounds. We came up with this beautiful ad where a young woman walks through the subway and her imagination comes to life, and you see the tools um, come to life in front of her. And we were working with this very famous director, and we were supposed to shoot it in Prague. And I think this was February of 2020.
Great.
I was pregnant at the time, and I remember my husband telling me, he's like, "You're not going to Prague. COVID's going to take over." And I was like, "No, no, no. It's something that's
Everything will be fine.
everything's gonna be fine." 2 weeks later, I'm like, "Whoa, I don't actually know if I feel safe traveling internationally right now." And we sent, 2 of an art director and a producer over to Prague to shoot it, and while they were in the air, Trump shut the borders down. And they landed, and they were both not American citizens, which meant if they didn't fly back immediately, they weren't gonna get back into the country. And I think we did probably one of the first remote shoots that was done during the pandemic because they shut the borders down on a Thursday and our shoot started on Friday. And we like to call our production department, and now it's just spread to the rest of the agency, possibility makers, because they make things possible. And really, they truly did. Like we ended up setting up a video village in a conference room at 72 and Sunny as they abandoned the office, and we all wore masks and spent the night there and watched uh, the shoot happen in Prague from LA. And then, what do you know? We'd shot on a subway, which uh, we probably weren't going to launch in the middle of the pandemic when no one was riding the subway, and had an insane special effects job because it's Adobe and it was full of craft. And I really think the team did like what seemed impossible at the time. My one of my favorite shows is Station 11. I don't know if you've seen it on HBO, but it's a post-apocalyptic show. And there's this traveling group of like a Shakespearean theater group that travels. And on the side of their wagon, they have a quote from Star Trek, which says, "Survival is insufficient." And this was my like mantra during the pandemic because we are creative people and we do creative things, obviously in the service of business challenges and ambitions, but we are creative. And when you think about what's happening in a pandemic world, like survival is not enough. There are certain things that are worth um uplifting and salvaging from humanity, and that is the power of creativity. And so we managed to get this beautiful VFX job done. We held back on launching it and launched it, when people started traveling subways again. And the spot ended up being incredibly impactful for the Adobe business. We saw that brand love started to increase again. We also even saw, interestingly, like not only Creative Cloud subscriptions, but also Acrobat signups and stuff like that. And we managed to do something like really, really beautiful, and creative when everybody else was kind of doing work about how sad it was to be locked down at home, and here we were talking about the power, and belief in creativity.
What a great story. That makes me that's really heartening. And also, like, I've heard this theme a few times, talking to the people at the Martin agency. The same thing happened with them. And I think that's the coolest thing about creative teams and creative people is that we're good when we're put in a box. And that was quite a box. And a lot of us rose to the occasion and we just figured out how instead of just being sad or giving up. And, there was some pretty incredible work done at that time, that was very different. And I think it taught us all a lot too of what is possible when when your toys are taken away from you. You
Yes,
know,
yes,
it's pretty cool stuff.
yes, it really is.
Yeah. So let me talk to you a little bit about your role because I know you've been at 72 and Sunny now for like what, 7 years, maybe
Mhm,
plus.
mhm, yeah.
And you've really like, you came in, I think, just as a creative director for, working under a lot of other creative directors and for clients, and now you're the executive creative director. That is quite a journey in 7 years. How do you keep your team working on all this different disparate clients and their brands and keep them focused but keep them energized? How do you do this? Because it's a big challenge for executive creative directors.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a partner, his name is Zach, so he's my counterpart, he's a co-ECD, and we've actually worked together in other lifetimes before, and then I think there's something really special about, 72 and Sunny, and I'm gonna keep coming back to similar refrains about, optimism and belief in what's possible and our own capability. We just turned 20 this summer, and I had to give a little talk to the agency about what that meant to me. And I brought up this metaphor. Allow me to just talk about my children for a second.
Please.
But I have a 6-year-old, and last year she had expressed some interest in doing gymnastics, and she started doing gymnastics, um, and she wanted to quit immediately. She thought it was really hard. Like, she just could not do a cartwheel, and she'd watch the other kids do cartwheels who'd been doing it for longer, and she would fall down when she'd kneed herself in the face and got a black eye once, and, I told her, I was like, "You know what, Georgina? You can quit when you've had a good day. So give it a couple more tries. I know you had a bad day today. If you still want to quit at the end of the month, low key, I had to pay a bunch of money to keep doing this every month. So I was like, let's get our money's worth. And what do you know? By the end of the month, she could do a cartwheel. And now, I kid you not, she literally cartwheels through life. Like, she cartwheels out the front door and grabs her backpack. She cartwheels on the way into school. She's now moved on from a cartwheel to doing a round off. And she can jump and do the splits and then do a cartwheel. And ever since then, she just like picks up new skills and picks up new skills. And, it's an important lesson as a parent. Like, we can do hard things, but it's also a lesson that I've learned at 72 and Sunny. I think I got my first real growth plan. A growth plan. It was my first year in. I had this boss named Claire, and she gave me my first growth plan that was not just praise and what she wanted out of me, but I felt like it saw me and saw what I was capable of doing. And that is something that I believe 72 and Sunny has done for me, and something that I try to do for everyone who works at 72 and Sunny, which is believing that I can do the cartwheel before I can do the cartwheel. And I think when you look at junior talent and our creative directors and our group creative directors and the rest of the agency, there is a belief that people can do things and that we will work together to do the things that are hard, because our industry can be challenging and loves to throw you curveballs, and it's hard to see when you're in the middle of it that there's a beautiful cartwheel at the end, or a beautiful film, or a brand campaign. And I think constantly talking about growth, seeing where we can go, understanding that we can do hard things, and seeing what we're capable of doing before we do it helps bond us together and keep us going.
I bet.
And also, like, I'm not gonna lie, I think we have a really great roster of clients right now.
That helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a helpful tool, to know that there's good work, in your future, and good work for some really marquee brands.
Yeah, I think it's important to have brands you actually fit with too. Relationships don't last very long if your vision for the world, optimism and all these things doesn't go with how the client looks at things. It's like being in a bad relationship. We've all been there. If you're in a bad relationship with a client, it's just like any bad relationship. So when you're in good relationships that are a good fit, it works. And I love what you said about, your growth plan and people intentionally looking for each other to help each other, not just get what they need or want out of each other, but how do you grow as a person and professionally there? Because that really is the difference that I've found between great brands and okay brands is the intention that we have to take care of each other and help each other truly succeed as people.
Yeah, it's something I mean, when I look at we have a leadership team, in LA right now, and every person at the lead on the leadership team has worked at 72 and Sunny for at least 5 years in our LA team.
Yeah, and your CEO's been there a long time too.
So long, I think 15 years or something, and, or no, sorry, she's been there 20 years, and then our CCO, Matt's been there 15 years, and, I think I believe that 72 and Sunny is a place where not only I mean, a lot of agencies can say you're gonna do the best work of your career, arguably. But I think 72 and Sunny is in this unique position to say, like, you're gonna do the best work of your career, but you're gonna also learn and grow as you go. You're gonna end up, if you ever leave, being better than you were when you came in here with obviously a better hard skill set, but also a soft skill set. And I think we truly do believe in growing and promoting from within. And that's been certainly my journey, and I hope to be a lot of other people's journeys as they continue.
Yeah, and I think that longevity speaks volumes about the brand and how you all care for each other and your clients. I think you can tell the agencies that are like that. The Martins and the 72 and Sunnies and other agencies where people stay because they're taken care of, they grow, they get interesting work. And it isn't always like, let me do my year or two here and I'm going to go to the other place. So I love your organization. I think it's a great place. I'm really, really happy talking to you today. So, with you leading creative and all the changes you've been through in the last 7 years, what's changed about your leadership style? What have you learned? Because I know when you first start, it's hard, to be a leader. So what do you think you've gotten better at, or what have you refined?
Oh gosh, you'd have to ask some of the people that I work with whether I'm getting better. It's always a journey, honestly, truly. Like I have some things in mind for my own growth right now. I've gone from I think when I was younger in my career, I think more in it for me. Like I was truly like I just wanted to I'm a creative person at my soul. Like I just want to make things. I want to get my hands in things. I want to like be always creating and having ideas. And I was really just always searching for like the next great brief. And as I've grown in my career, two things have happened. Like, I, of course, want to grow other people and their creative spirit and put them where they think that they are going to grow and thrive. And then I've also changed the way I look at brands and briefs. I think the United Airlines example, Adobe, these are both brands that I've worked with for, 3, 4, 6 years. And I'm really looking at how we build brands for the long term and how you can do obviously great work now, but cement their position. United has a thing that they talk about, which is climbing all brands peak. They don't really just want to be the best airline advertiser. They want to be up there at the very top. And I'm completely aligned with this climbing mission, even if the oxygen levels can be dizzying. But I think we're really thinking about what we want to do this year for United, but how that's going to have lasting impact for years to come. I remember Matt Murphy, my boss and my CCO, sitting me down when I was a sort of new creative director, telling me that my job was to think in terms of the next month. And that when I got to the next level, I would be thinking in the next 6 months, and that when I got to the next level, I'd be thinking in terms of years, and that it really is a shift in how I think about the work that we do, and how we work together to do that. And then, I think one of the big thing that's on my mind right now is really like thinking about what I want my legacy at 72 and Sunny to be, and what that imprint is gonna have on the people, but also the work that we do, and I can't talk too much about some of the things that we have upcoming in the next 6 months to a year, but stay tuned because I think we really wanna define what this era for 72 and Sunny will be, obviously keeping the values that make this agency really special, but then thinking about, what we wanna do now that we're coming out of a pandemic and we've got a new generation of talent coming in and the brand and advertising marketing world looks different than it did 20 years ago when the agency was founded. So what are the principles that stay the same? And then what are the new things that we want to do and create to lead the industry and the people that are within the company now?
It'll be fun to watch. I mean, you all continue to evolve, and I really respect the leadership there and the fact that so many of you are there and doing the work. And I think that when clients have that kind of commitment to their creative partner and the creative partner has that kind of commitment to the client, that's where you get the really great work. With like the Geicos and Martin, with United and you all, with Adobe and you all. It's being able to look forward past, this campaign and this brief that actually makes the work great. We talk about that too. You're almost living the client's brand with them at that point because you wake up caring about them as much as you care about yourself.
Yes, and I think another thing that I've been learning to do more and more is how to be a really good listener and how to ask really good questions. I think, at any point in time, like I've got something that I'm an expert in and that I can share and I can give, but there's always something that I can learn. And I think that goes for like a junior creative or a junior strategist. I can learn something from them and their perspective, but certainly um, client business and how we partner together.
Yeah, it really helps to be a curious person in the creative field. You're sort of part sociologist, part investigator, and part painter. It's like a strange mix of skills, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It really is. So let me ask you a few, like I have a few closing questions I like to ask. What's a trait of yours that you used to think that was a weakness that now you think is a strength?
I have always been a bit oversubscribed. Um, like, um, if I look at my high school yearbook, like, the sort of lists of things that I wanted to do because I was so interested in everything, and so I wanted to have my hands in everything and be a part of something, and I think when I was, more junior in my career, it would distract me from the focus that I needed to put on whatever thing that I was doing. And when I was an ACD at Media Arts Lab, and the only thing that I needed to do was just think about the iPhone, and I would want to get my hands dirty in other things. And I think now that I've balanced that out a little bit, and in my role now, it like allows me to take from all the different pieces and to be able to funnel them together. I'd say like I've sort of peaked in my Hummingbird era. I've like flit around quite a bit. But you'd have to ask my partners if that's actually become a strength or not, because it's still probably a weakness.
I hear that from a lot of creatives because, like, I think all young creatives have a hummingbird phase where they just want to be everywhere doing everything. And it's like, then we learn, hey, that's maybe not as effective as focusing and going deep. But that's a great, thank you. That's a great answer. What would you name this chapter in your life right now?
I think it's my mothering era.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah. I've got 3 kids, um, but I also have an agency, and it's not the same thing, but I think that there are a lot of I've changed quite a bit, um, as a creative, as a leader, and as a person from becoming a mother.
Oh, I'm sure. It's a very rich experience. Do you find that you're like more patient and nurturing with clients and relationships and the people you work with, or are you more impatient now?
I mean, I had a little bit of both. I think time is always my enemy. I have become much more interested in the emotional, um realities of the people with which I work and my children. Like I find myself much more in tune with what people's needs and desires are and try to set my kids up for success but also the people that I work with. And I think like acknowledging sometimes, oh, we're actually just having an emotional conversation right now. I think I can so quickly default to game plan mode and solving something. And like one thing that you learn as a parent is like this is not the same thing. So I don't want to offend any creatives that might be out there thinking that I'm comparing their emotions to tantrums. But sometimes if you listen to these parenting podcasts, it's like your kid just has to go through the emotion and you just have to be there to support them while they do it, and then they will figure it out for themselves. And sometimes creative work is really hard. You get bad feedback. Something changes because you had no control over it. A whole campaign dies. Um, uh, and sometimes you just have to like get through the emotion of it and hold the space and be the scaffolding for them and let them know that they're safe and you're there to support them. And then they can figure it out on their own.
Yeah, it's very human work. So bringing that perspective to, from being a mother to the work you do, I think is incredibly wise because, it's going to be a process of nurturing creatives. This is always our parting question. So this has been an incredible interview. If you could just give your younger self any advice right now, what would it be?
Life is long and full of chapters. You don't have to do it all now. um, and just to be okay with changing and growing. Um, I think the older I get, the more I realize that like life doesn't end at some point in middle age and you don't plateau. Like there's always opportunity to like change and grow and create and like be the best you at any given point in time.
Thank you. You're charming. This was absolutely wonderful. Thank you for your time today. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
Want to hear more inspiring stories? Subscribe on your preferred podcast app so you don't miss an episode. And if you like what we're doing, please rate, review, and share. It's the best way to support us. Thank you for listening to Brand Story.